Most people don't realize when they lose control of their lives. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, in small moments, when you react instead of choose, when emotions decide for you, when your thoughts run faster than your awareness. I know this because I lived there for years. On the outside, things looked fine. On the inside, everything felt noisy, tense, and unstable. I spent a long time believing that if I could just fix my circumstances, everything would calm down. A better schedule, better results, better people around me. I thought control meant managing the world efficiently. But no matter how much effort I put into changing what was outside, the same patterns followed me. Stress returned. Frustration came back. The feeling of being overwhelmed never truly left. What I didn't understand back then was simple, but uncomfortable. The problem was not life. The problem was how I was responding to it. My inner world was chaotic, and I was expecting peace to come from the outside. I was trying to build stability on top of reactions, impulses, and unchecked emotions, and that foundation could never hold. Everything began to shift when I stopped asking how to control my life and started asking how to control myself. Not in a harsh or rigid way, but with honesty. I started noticing my thoughts instead of immediately believing them. I started feeling emotions without acting on them right away. I learned to pause, even when it felt uncomfortable. That pause changed everything. This audiobook is not about becoming perfect or fearless. It is about becoming steady. It is about learning how to stay grounded when things don't go your way, how to think clearly when pressure builds, and how to act from intention instead of habit. Self-control is not about force. It is about alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions move the same direction, life becomes lighter. You don't need to escape responsibility or disconnect from the world to find peace. You need inner order. When the inner world is calm, decisions become clearer. When emotions are regulated, confidence grows naturally. When discipline replaces chaos, trust in yourself begins to form. And when you trust yourself, the world feels less threatening and manageable overall. The ideas you will hear in this audiobook are not theories pulled from books alone. They are principles shaped by experience, mistakes, reflection, and practice. They are meant to be lived, not admired. You may recognize yourself in these moments. You may hear truths that feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a sign to turn away. It is often a sign that something important is waking up. Change does not happen in dramatic breakthroughs. It happens when you show up differently in ordinary moments. When you choose calm over reaction, clarity over noise, discipline over impulse. These small decisions, repeated consistently, reshape your inner world. And as your inner world changes, the outside begins to respond differently too. If you are here because you feel overwhelmed, reactive, or disconnected from your own sense of control, you are not broken. You are simply being invited to begin where real strength starts. Inside. Listen with patience. Apply what resonates. And if this message speaks to you, share this video with a friend who needs it right now to improve their life today. Chapter 1. Why control always starts inside. For years, I believed control meant keeping life from falling apart. I thought that if I planned well enough, worked harder, and stayed ahead of problems, I would finally feel calm. On the surface, that belief made sense. If everything was organized, nothing could go wrong. But the truth was harsher. The more I tried to control outcomes, the more tense I became inside. My days were filled with pressure, not peace, and my mind never truly rested. The harder I tried to control life, the less control I actually felt. What I didn't realize back then was that control has very little to do with circumstances. It has everything to do with perception. Two people can face the same workload, the same stress, the same uncertainty, and walk away with completely different emotional states. One feels overwhelmed and reactive. The other stays steady and clear. The difference is not talent or luck. It is the level of order inside their inner world. Chaos outside is rarely the real problem. Chaos inside is. I learned this during a season when everything demanded my attention at once. Deadlines tightened, expectations increased. My mind jumped constantly from one worry to the next. I noticed that even small disruptions triggered outsized reactions. One unexpected message could derail my focus for hours. One change in plans could sour my mood for the entire day. Life wasn't crushing me. My reactions were. That was the moment I realized I wasn't living with control. I was living on reaction. No amount of planning could protect me from uncertainty. No level of preparation could guarantee smooth outcomes. Life, by its nature, is unpredictable. The mistake I was making was trying to build stability by controlling everything outside myself. The truth was uncomfortable but freeing. The only thing I could consistently influence was how I showed up internally. Real control begins where excuses end. When you accept that you cannot control people, timing, or outcomes, something shifts. Responsibility moves inward. That shift can feel heavy at first because it removes the comfort of blame, but it also restores power. Instead of wasting energy fighting reality, you reclaim it by focusing on your thoughts, your attention, and your response. Every outcome in your life passes through your inner world first. Thoughts shape emotions. Emotions influence actions. Actions determine results. When your thoughts are scattered and unchecked, your emotions become reactive. When emotions run the show, actions lose precision. Trying to fix results without addressing this internal chain is like treating symptoms while ignoring the cause. You stay busy, but nothing truly changes. External control is loud and exhausting. Internal control is quiet and stable. I began to notice how much of my stress came from trying to manage things I couldn't actually influence. Other people's opinions, sudden changes, delays, outcomes that didn't match my effort. Every time I fought these realities, tension increased. When I started letting go of what wasn't mine to control, my energy returned. Not because life became easier, but because I stopped carrying unnecessary weight. Letting go is not a weakness. It is precision. Internal control doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means choosing your responses deliberately instead of reacting automatically. When something goes wrong, the question shifts. Instead of asking why this is happening, you ask what the most effective response is right now. That single change in mindset reduces unnecessary suffering more than most people realize. Fear is often the hidden driver behind the need to control. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing stability. When fear dominates the inner world, control becomes rigid and forceful. You grip tighter, react faster, and push harder. Ironically, this creates more instability, not less. True control does not feel tense. It feels calm. It does not rush. It responds. Calm is not the absence of pressure. It is the presence of inner order. Internal control begins with awareness. You cannot regulate a thought you haven't noticed or an emotion you refuse to acknowledge. I started practicing something simple, pausing long enough to observe my inner reaction before acting on it. That pause felt uncomfortable at first. It challenged old habits, but it gave me space, and space gave me choice. That pause changed everything. With time, I noticed my reaction slowing down. I didn't eliminate stress, but I stopped feeding it. I didn't suppress emotions, but I stopped letting them dictate my behavior. Situations that once triggered anxiety now felt manageable. External circumstances remained imperfect, but my experience of them became steadier. Control stopped feeling like a struggle and started feeling like alignment. This is where your work begins as well. Not by fixing your life, but by observing how you respond to it. Pay attention to moments when you feel rushed, irritated, or overwhelmed. Those moments are not failures. They are signals. They reveal where control is being handed over unconsciously. Your reactions are the clearest mirror of your inner world. You do not need to control everything to live well. You need enough inner control to meet life with clarity. When control starts inside, the outside world stops feeling like an enemy you must constantly manage. It becomes a space where you can move with intention, adaptability, and confidence. This is not control that dominates others. It is control that stabilizes you. Inner control is not achieved once and kept forever. It is practiced daily. Some days you will respond well. Other days you will notice old patterns returning. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are aware. And awareness is the foundation of mastery. Every moment of awareness is an opportunity to choose differently. Each time you slow down instead of reacting, you strengthen self-trust. Each time you respond with clarity instead of impulse, you build inner order. Over time, these moments compound. You become harder to shake, not because life becomes gentle, but because your foundation becomes strong. This is where real control lives. It does not announce itself loudly. It shows up in calm decisions, measured responses, in the quiet confidence of knowing you can handle whatever comes next. When control starts inside, life does not become perfect. It becomes manageable. And that is where real freedom begins. Not somewhere out there, but right here, within you. Chapter 2. Awareness is the foundation of inner control. Most people believe control begins with action. They think doing more, fixing faster, and responding quicker will solve the problem. I believe that too. When things felt unstable, my instinct was always to move, react, and interfere. Silence felt dangerous. Pausing felt like losing ground. What I didn't understand was that action without awareness is just reaction in disguise. Awareness is the ability to notice what is happening inside you before it turns into behavior. Before I learned this, my days ran on autopilot. I woke up already thinking about what could go wrong. I checked messages compulsively. I reacted emotionally before I fully understood what I was reacting to. Looking back, I wasn't choosing my life. I was being carried by it, and the more unconscious I was, the less control I actually had. You cannot control what you do not see. That sentence became a turning point for me. I realized I was trying to manage my behavior without ever observing the thoughts and emotions driving it. It was like trying to steer a car without looking at the road. Awareness doesn't change anything immediately, but it reveals everything. And once something is revealed, it can no longer run your life from the shadows. Awareness begins with noticing thoughts as events, not commands. I used to believe every thought that entered my mind. If a thought said something was wrong, I assumed it was. If a thought predicted failure, I felt anxiety instantly. Awareness taught me to step back and observe instead of obey. A thought could exist without becoming my truth. That separation created space. And in that space, control became possible. Emotions lose their grip when they are fully seen. Before awareness, emotions felt overwhelming because they were unconscious. They controlled my tone, my posture, my decisions. Once I began naming what I felt, something shifted. Saying, "This is frustration" or "this is fear," created distance. The emotion didn't disappear, but it softened. Awareness turned emotional storms into signals instead of commands. Most suffering is not caused by emotions, but by unconscious reactions to them. When you don't notice what you feel, you act it out, you interrupt, you withdraw, you defend. Awareness interrupts this pattern. It allows you to feel without reacting, and that is where self-control is born. You don't need to suppress emotion. You need to stay present with it long enough to choose wisely. Awareness is not passive, it is active restraint. Many people mistake awareness for inaction. In reality, it is disciplined attention. It is choosing to watch instead of react, to listen instead of interrupt, to pause instead of explode. This restraint feels uncomfortable at first because it removes familiar habits. But that discomfort is a sign of growth, not weakness. I started practicing awareness in the smallest moments. When irritation appeared, I noticed it instead of acting on it. When my mind rushed ahead, I brought it back. When fear showed up, I acknowledged it without feeding it. These moments felt insignificant, but they accumulated. Slowly, my reactions lost intensity. My decisions gained clarity. Life didn't become quieter, but I became steadier within it. Awareness slows time. When you are aware, moments stretch. You see options where there were none before. Instead of being pushed forward by impulse, you stand still long enough to choose direction. This slowing is not weakness, it is control. It is the difference between being driven and driving. You don't need hours of meditation to build awareness. You need moments of honesty. Awareness is built when you notice tension in your body, when you catch a thought before it spirals, when you recognize an emotion without judgment. These moments take seconds, not hours. But practiced consistently, they rewire how you experience life. Awareness reveals patterns you cannot fix while ignoring. I began noticing the same reactions repeating, the same triggers, the same stories in my head. Awareness showed me that my struggles were predictable, and once something is predictable, it becomes manageable. Control is not about eliminating patterns, it is about recognizing them early enough to respond differently. This is where real inner control starts to take shape. Not with force, not with discipline alone, but with clear seeing. Awareness creates the foundation on which all self-control rests. Without it, discipline becomes rigid and exhausting. With it, discipline becomes intentional and sustainable. If you want control, start by watching yourself. Watch how you react under pressure. Watch how your thoughts speak to you. Watch how emotions rise and fall. Do this without judgment. Judgment clouds awareness. Curiosity sharpens it. The goal is not to criticize yourself, but to understand yourself. Awareness turns life into a choice instead of a reaction. When you see clearly, you act deliberately. When you act deliberately, you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, control no longer feels forced, it feels natural. This is the quiet power of awareness. It doesn't announce itself. It simply changes how you move through the world, one conscious moment at a time. As you listen to this chapter, remember that awareness is not a destination you reach once and keep forever. It is a practice you return to daily. Some days you will notice quickly. Other days you will forget completely. That is normal. Each moment you remember to observe instead of react. You strengthen this skill. Over time, awareness becomes your default state. From that place, control stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like clarity. And clarity is the doorway through which every meaningful change enters your life. This is how you slowly reclaim ownership of your mind and direction. Chapter 3. Master your thoughts. Before they master you, most people don't realize how little control they have over their own thinking. Thoughts appear automatically, constantly, and without invitation. They comment on everything you do, they predict outcomes, they judge your past, they warn you about the future. For a long time, I assumed this stream of thoughts was simply me. I believed that if a thought appeared, it must be true, important, or urgent. That belief quietly ran my life. The mind does not ask for permission before it speaks. I used to wake up already thinking. Before my feet touched the floor, my mind was replaying conversations, imagining problems, and creating pressure that did not yet exist. By the time the day began, I was already tired. Not because life was demanding, but because my thoughts never rested. I wasn't managing my thinking, I was being managed by it. Thinking is powerful, but unchecked thinking is destructive. The mind's job is to generate possibilities, not to determine reality. It exaggerates risks, replays mistakes, and fills silence with noise. When you believe every thought, you live inside constant tension. Over time, this creates anxiety, indecision, and emotional fatigue. The problem is not that you think too much. The problem is that you don't question what you think. A thought is not a fact. It is an event. This realization changed everything for me. Once I began seeing thoughts as passing events instead of commands, their grip weakened. A thought could arise without needing a response. A worry could exist without becoming a decision. That separation created freedom. I no longer had to fight my mind. I simply had to observe it. Most overthinking is the mind trying to feel safe. When the future feels uncertain, the mind fills the gap with scenarios. When the past feels unresolved, the mind replays it endlessly. This is not a weakness. It is survival. But survival thinking is not the same as clear thinking. If you let it run unchecked, it will exhaust you while pretending to protect you. Clarity does not come from more thinking. It comes from better thinking. I used to believe that if I thought long enough, I would find the perfect answer. Instead, I found confusion. What actually helped was reducing mental noise. I began asking simple questions when my thoughts spiraled. Is this a fact or an assumption? Is this useful right now? Is this within my control? These questions slowed the momentum of the mind. The mind loses power when it is questioned. When you interrupt a thought instead of following it, you reclaim control. You don't need to silence your mind completely. You need to stop letting it drag you into imaginary problems. Every time you notice a thought and choose not to engage, you strengthen mental discipline. That discipline compounds quietly over time. Negative self-talk is often a habit, not a truth. I noticed that many of my thoughts were repetitive. The same doubts, the same criticisms, the same fears. Awareness showed me that I wasn't discovering new information. I was replaying old patterns. Once I saw that, those thoughts lost authority. Familiarity does not equal truth. Repetition does not equal accuracy. Your internal dialogue shapes your emotional state. The way you speak to yourself determines how you feel. Harsh thoughts create tension. Catastrophic thoughts create fear. Gentle clarity creates calm. I learned that changing how I spoke internally changed how I moved through the world externally. The voice in your head becomes the lens through which you experience life. Mental discipline is choosing where your attention rests. Attention feeds thoughts. The more attention you give a thought, the stronger it becomes. When you withdraw attention, thoughts weaken naturally. This is not suppression, it is redirection. You don't argue with every thought, you simply choose not to follow it. That choice is where mastery begins. Silence reveals what noise was hiding. As I reduced unnecessary thinking, moments of silence appeared. At first, they felt uncomfortable. The mind wants to fill space, but within that silence, clarity emerged. Decisions became simpler. Emotions stabilized. I realized that many problems were created by thinking ahead unnecessarily. When I stayed present, most of them dissolved. Thinking less does not mean caring less. It means caring wisely. You still plan, you still reflect, but you do it intentionally. Instead of endless mental loops, you schedule thinking when it is useful and let go when it is not. This balance creates mental energy instead of draining it. Control is not about eliminating thought. It is about placing boundaries around it. Your thoughts influence your identity more than you realize. What you repeatedly think becomes how you see yourself. If your thoughts constantly emphasize limitation, fear, or failure, your confidence erodes. When your thoughts become clearer and more grounded, self-trust grows. Identity is not fixed. It is shaped daily by internal conversation. Mastery begins when you stop arguing with your mind and start leading it. Leadership does not require force. It requires direction. You don't punish your mind for wandering. You guide it back. Over time, it learns where it belongs. The mind responds to consistency, not criticism. This practice is available to everyone in every moment. When a thought pulls you into the future, return to the present. When it drags you into the past, return to what is real now. When it creates fear, ask if the threat is immediate. Most of the time, it is not. That return is an act of self-control. Clear thinking creates emotional stability. When thoughts slow, emotions settle. When emotions settle, actions improve. This chain reaction begins with awareness and continues with discipline. You don't need to control every thought. You need to choose which ones deserve your attention. As you listen to this chapter, remember that mental mastery is not about winning against your mind. It is about understanding it. Each time you notice a thought without following it, you build inner strength. Each time you choose clarity over noise, you reclaim energy. Over time, your mind becomes a tool instead of a battlefield, and when your thoughts no longer control you, you regain one of the most powerful forms of freedom available: the ability to choose your inner state, regardless of what is happening outside. Chapter 4. Emotional control is real power. Most people believe emotions are something that just happened to them. They think anger, fear, frustration, or anxiety arrive without warning and must be acted on immediately. For a long time, I lived this way. When I felt something strongly, I assumed it deserved a reaction. If I was angry, I spoke. If I was anxious, I avoided. If I was frustrated, I pushed harder. I didn't realize I was handing control to whatever emotion showed up first. Emotions are not the problem. Losing yourself inside them is. I used to think emotional control meant suppressing feelings. I believed strength meant pretending nothing affected me. That approach only created more tension. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They wait. They leak into tone, posture, decisions, and relationships. The goal is not to silence emotions. The goal is to stop letting them drive. Real power is the ability to feel deeply without reacting impulsively. I learned this after noticing how often I regretted things I said or did while emotional. The damage rarely came from the emotion itself. It came from the speed of my response. I reacted before understanding what I felt. I spoke before choosing my words. Once I slowed down, the regret faded. Not because emotions vanished, but because I stopped obeying them blindly. There is a critical gap between feeling and acting. Most people never notice it. Emotion rises, action follows. But that gap is where freedom lives. When you learn to pause inside that space, you gain choice. Even a few seconds of awareness can change the outcome of an entire situation. That pause became one of the most valuable skills I ever practiced. Suppression creates tension. Control creates stability. Suppression is pushing emotions away. Control is staying present with them without feeding them. When I allowed myself to feel frustration without acting on it, something surprising happened. The emotion peaked and passed on its own. I didn't need to fix it. I just needed to stay with it long enough for it to lose momentum. Emotions want expression, not domination. When emotions are acknowledged, they soften. When they are ignored or resisted, they intensify. I started naming what I felt internally. This is irritating. This is fear. This is disappointing. That simple act created distance. The emotion was still there, but it no longer defined me. Most emotional reactions are habits, not necessities. I noticed patterns. Certain situations triggered the same feelings every time, the same defensiveness, the same impatience. Awareness revealed that these reactions were learned responses, not unavoidable truths. Once something becomes visible, it becomes optional. I didn't have to respond the way I always had. Emotional control is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. Clear emotions lead to clear decisions. When emotions are unmanaged, decisions become distorted. Fear shrinks perspective. Anger narrows focus. Anxiety creates urgency where none exists. Control restores balance. It allows emotions to inform you without overwhelming you. Calm is a skill, not a personality trait. I used to believe some people were naturally calm and others weren't. I was wrong. Calm is practiced. It is built by repeatedly choosing restraint over reaction. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen that skill. Over time, calm becomes your default state. Your body often reacts before your mind understands. I learned to notice physical signals. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, clenched jaw. These signals appeared before emotional outbursts. Paying attention to them gave me early warning. When I addressed the body, the emotion softened. Control begins at the earliest sign, not at the breaking point. Emotional maturity is the ability to stay grounded under pressure. Pressure reveals whether control is present. Anyone can appear calm when things go smoothly. Real strength shows up when expectations are challenged and outcomes are uncertain. Emotional control allows you to remain steady even when situations are uncomfortable. Responding slowly is often the strongest move. Silence is not weakness, it is composure. I learned that I didn't need to respond immediately to every emotional trigger. Delayed responses were often better responses. Time provided clarity. What felt urgent in the moment often felt insignificant later. When you control your emotions, you protect your energy. Uncontrolled emotions drain energy. They consume attention and fuel unnecessary conflict. Control preserves energy for what matters. When I stopped reacting emotionally to everything, I felt lighter. Not because life changed, but because I stopped wasting emotional effort. Emotional control changes how others experience you. People respond differently to steadiness. Calm creates trust. Measured responses create respect. I noticed that when I stayed composed, conversations shifted. Conflict de-escalated. Others became less reactive. Control is contagious. This practice requires patience and compassion towards yourself. You will fail sometimes. Old reactions will resurface. That does not erase progress. Each moment of awareness is a step forward. Control is not about never reacting. It is about recovering faster and learning sooner. Strength is not proven through force, but through restraint. The strongest people I know are not loud or aggressive. They are steady. They listen more than they speak. They choose responses instead of being driven by impulse. Emotional control gives you that steadiness. As you work through this chapter, remember that emotions are part of being human. They are signals, not enemies. When you learn to feel without feeding them, you reclaim power. Over time, emotions stop feeling overwhelming and start feeling manageable. You no longer fear what you feel. You trust your ability to handle it. That trust creates confidence. And confidence built on emotional control is quiet, durable, and unshakable. Chapter 5. Discipline creates inner order. Most people think discipline is about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. That belief kept me away from discipline for a long time. I associated it with punishment, rigidity, and a loss of freedom. I thought discipline meant becoming harsh with myself, cutting out enjoyment, and living under constant pressure. So instead, I relied on motivation. When I felt inspired, I acted. When I didn't, I waited. That approach felt kinder, but it slowly eroded my trust in myself. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. I noticed a pattern I could no longer ignore. On days when I felt motivated, I showed up fully. On days when I didn't, I broke promises to myself. Over time, those broken promises added weight. I started doubting my ability to follow through. Not because I was incapable, but because I had trained myself to act only when it felt easy. That inconsistency created inner chaos. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about reliability. The turning point came when I reframed what discipline actually was. Discipline was not about doing extreme things. It was about doing small, necessary things consistently. Waking up when I said I would. Finishing what I started. Keeping simple commitments, especially when no one was watching. That shift changed how discipline felt. It stopped being oppressive and started becoming stabilizing. Every promise you keep to yourself builds inner order. I began with the smallest commitments possible. One focused work session, one short walk, one intentional pause before checking my phone. These actions seemed insignificant, but they had a powerful effect. Each completed promise strengthened my self-trust. Each broken promise weakened it. Discipline became less about productivity and more about integrity with myself. Inner chaos thrives in the absence of structure. Without discipline, the mind drifts. Emotions fluctuate wildly. Focus fractures easily. I noticed that on undisciplined days, my thoughts raced and my emotions felt heavier. On disciplined days, even simple structure created calm. The mind relaxes when it knows what to expect. Discipline provides that predictability internally. Discipline is self-respect in action. This realization changed my relationship with it entirely. I wasn't disciplining myself because I was flawed. I was disciplining myself because I valued my future. Each disciplined action was a signal that I took my own words seriously. That respect reflected back as confidence, not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. Freedom is built on structure, not the absence of it. I once believed freedom meant doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. In reality, that led to distraction and regret. True freedom came from choosing what mattered and committing to it. Discipline removed decision fatigue. When routines were in place, energy was freed for creativity, focus, and meaningful work. Discipline protects you from your own impulses. Emotions shift, energy fluctuates, circumstances change. Discipline creates stability across all of it. On days when motivation was low or emotions were heavy, discipline carried me forward. It didn't require force. It required consistency. Over time, discipline became automatic, and resistance decreased. You don't rise to discipline, you build it. I stopped waiting to feel ready. Readiness is unreliable. Discipline grows through repetition. Each time you act despite resistance, you strengthen the habit. Each time you delay, you weaken it. This process is gradual, but it is dependable. Discipline compounds quietly. Discipline simplifies decision-making. When habits are established, fewer choices are needed. You don't debate whether to show up. You just do. This simplicity reduces mental noise. It conserves energy. It creates clarity. Discipline removes friction from life instead of adding to it. The goal is not perfection, but consistency. There were days I failed, days I broke routines or skipped commitments. The difference was how quickly I returned. Discipline is not about never falling off. It is about not staying off. Each return strengthened the system instead of breaking it. Inner order creates emotional stability. As discipline settled in, I noticed emotions becoming more predictable. Anxiety decreased. Confidence increased. Not because life became easier, but because I was no longer negotiating with myself constantly. Discipline removed internal conflict. That removal created peace. Discipline makes self-control sustainable. Without discipline, Awareness and emotional control collapse under pressure. Discipline reinforces them. It creates a foundation strong enough to support clarity during stress. Self-control becomes reliable instead of fragile. Small disciplines create large results over time. You don't need dramatic routines. You need repeatable ones. One disciplined action, practiced daily, changes identity. Over time, you become someone who follows through. That identity shift is powerful. Discipline does not restrict life. It organizes it. When your inner world is ordered, external chaos loses power. You move through challenges with steadiness. You respond instead of react. Discipline holds the structure that allows freedom to exist. As you listen to this chapter, remember that discipline is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you practice. Start small. Be consistent. Keep your word to yourself. Each disciplined choice brings order to your inner world. And as that order grows, control stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. This is how discipline becomes not a burden, but a quiet source of strength that supports everything else in your life. Chapter 6. Focus is the gatekeeper of self-control. Most people don't lose control because they are weak. They lose it because they are distracted. For a long time, I thought my problem was discipline or motivation. In reality, my attention was constantly being pulled apart. Messages, notifications, unfinished tasks, mental noise. I was always busy, yet rarely present. The more my focus fractured, the harder it became to control my thoughts, emotions, and actions. Control was leaking through every distraction I allowed. Where your attention goes, your power follows. This truth became impossible to ignore. On days when my attention was scattered, my decisions were sloppy. I reacted emotionally. I procrastinated. I avoided what mattered most. On days when my focus was protected, everything felt simpler. My thoughts slowed. My emotions stabilized. Focus didn't just improve productivity. It restored control. Distraction is not harmless. It is a form of surrender. Every time I allowed my attention to be hijacked, I gave something away, not time, but authority over myself. Focus is the gatekeeper because it determines what enters your mind. If you allow constant interruptions, you invite chaos. If you guard your attention, you create order. This is not about becoming rigid. It is about being intentional. Multitasking weakens self-control. I used to pride myself on doing many things at once. Emails while thinking, notifications while working, conversations while checking my phone. What I didn't see was the cost. Each switch drained energy. Each interruption reset focus. Over time, my ability to concentrate eroded. Self-control requires presence, and multitasking destroys presence. Focus is not intensity, it is consistency. You don't need extreme concentration for long periods. You need sustained attention on one thing at a time. I started practicing single tasking. One task, one window, one moment. At first, it felt uncomfortable. My mind wanted stimulation, but as I stayed with it, something changed. Resistance faded, clarity increased. Your environment shapes your focus more than your willpower. I realized I was relying too much on willpower to stay focused in environments designed to distract me. Once I changed my environment, control became easier. Fewer notifications, clear workspaces, defined times for communication. These small changes protected my attention and reduced internal conflict. Focus thrives when friction is removed. What you consume determines how clearly you think. Constant information intake fragments attention. News, social media, endless content. I noticed that when I consumed less, my thinking improved. Silence created space. Space created clarity. Focus is not only about what you do, it is also about what you choose not to consume. Focus reveals what actually matters. When attention is scattered, Priorities blur. Everything feels urgent. Nothing feels meaningful. As focus returned, priorities sharpened. I could see what deserved energy and what did not. Focus doesn't create importance. It reveals it. You cannot control what you cannot stay with. I noticed that whenever something felt uncomfortable or demanding, my attention wanted to escape. Checking a phone, switching tasks, avoiding depth. But control is built by staying. Staying with discomfort, staying with effort, staying with the moment long enough to move through it instead of around it. Focus strengthens emotional regulation. When attention is anchored, emotions lose intensity. Anxiety feeds on scattered focus. Calm grows in presence. I found that when I focused fully on what I was doing, emotional noise faded. The mind cannot panic and be present at the same time. Focus turns effort into progress. Without focus, effort leaks. You work harder but achieve less. With focus, even small efforts compound. Progress becomes visible. Confidence grows naturally. Control strengthens as you see results from sustained attention. Distraction creates urgency. Focus creates direction. Urgency pushes you to react. Direction allows you to choose. When I stopped chasing every interruption, my days slowed down. Not because I did less, but because I did the right things. Focus replaced chaos with intention. Focus is a daily practice, not a permanent state. Some days are easier than others. Distraction returns. Attention wanders. The goal is not perfect focus. The goal is returning. Each return strengthens the habit. Each moment of awareness rebuilds control. Protecting focus is an act of self-respect. When you guard your attention, you signal that your time and energy matter. This respect translates into confidence. You stop scattering yourself across meaningless noise. You invest in what builds your life. Focus supports every other form of self-control. Without focus, awareness fades. Emotional control weakens. Discipline becomes fragile. Focus holds everything together. It is the quiet force that stabilizes the inner world. As you move forward, pay attention to where your attention goes. Notice what pulls it away. Notice what strengthens it. You don't need to eliminate distraction completely. You need to choose consciously. Each moment you protect your focus, you protect your ability to think clearly, feel steadily, and act deliberately. Over time, focus becomes your gatekeeper, guarding your inner world and preserving the control you have worked to build. Chapter 7. Detach from what you can't control. One of the most exhausting habits I had was trying to control outcomes. I obsessed over results, timing, and how things would turn out. I replayed conversations in my head. I worried about how others perceived me. I tried to predict reactions before they happened. I believed this mental effort would protect me from disappointment. Instead, it drained my energy and kept me in a constant state of tension. I wasn't preparing for life. I was resisting it. Control feels safe, but attachment is what actually creates suffering. I didn't understand the difference for a long time. Control is about directing your effort. Attachment is about needing a specific outcome to feel okay. The moment your peace depends on how something turns out, you lose control of your inner world. You give power to circumstances you cannot fully influence. That realization was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. You can control effort. You cannot control outcomes. This distinction changed how I approached everything. I could show up prepared, focused, and disciplined. I could not guarantee results, reactions, or timing. Once I separated effort from outcome, pressure began to lift. I still cared deeply about what I did, but I stopped tying my worth to how things unfolded. Most anxiety comes from trying to live in the future. I noticed that anxiety wasn't about what was happening now. It was about what might happen later. My mind lived ahead of my body, constantly forecasting problems. Detachment brought me back. It reminded me that the only moment I could actually act in was the present one. Everything else was speculation. Detachment is not indifference, it is clarity. I once believed that letting go meant caring less. In reality, it meant caring more intelligently. Detachment allowed me to invest fully in my actions without being emotionally hijacked by the result. I could pursue goals without being crushed by setbacks. I could commit without becoming rigid. When you attach to outcomes, you lose flexibility. Attachment narrows perception. It makes one path feel like the only acceptable option. When that path is threatened, panic appears. Detachment restores adaptability. It allows you to adjust, pivot, and respond creatively. Life rarely follows a straight line. Detachment prepares you for that truth. Letting go is an internal decision, not an external one. Circumstances don't need to change for detachment to begin. I learned to practice it internally. When expectations formed, I noticed them. When disappointment appeared, I acknowledged it without feeding it. I reminded myself that effort was my responsibility, not outcomes. This mental shift softened emotional reactions significantly. Other people's opinions are one of the hardest things to release. I spent years giving silent authority to how others might judge me. Their approval felt like validation. Their disapproval felt like danger. Detachment broke that pattern. I realized that opinions are reflections, not verdicts. When I stopped chasing approval, my decisions became clearer and more honest. Comparison disappears when detachment is present. Comparison thrives on attachment. Attachment to status, recognition, and external validation. Once I detached from needing to be ahead, better, or admired, comparison lost its grip. I could appreciate others' success without feeling diminished. Detachment returned focus to my own path. Detachment protects emotional energy. Emotional energy is finite. Attachment leaks it. Worrying about things you can't control is one of the fastest ways to exhaust yourself. Detachment preserves that energy for what matters. When I stopped emotionally investing in every possible outcome, I felt lighter. Not because life was easier, but because I stopped carrying unnecessary weight. Acceptance is a form of strength, not surrender. Accepting reality does not mean giving up. It means seeing clearly. When you accept what is, you can respond effectively. Resistance blinds you. Acceptance sharpens awareness. Detachment and acceptance work together to create grounded action. You cannot control life, but you can meet it with steadiness. Life will always contain uncertainty. Detachment does not eliminate risk. It eliminates unnecessary fear. It allows you to face challenges without being consumed by them. That steadiness is a powerful form of control. Letting go does not happen all at once. It happens moment by moment. Each time you notice yourself gripping an outcome, you have a choice. Tighten or release. Fight or accept. Over time, choosing release becomes easier. Detachment becomes a habit. Detachment makes resilience possible. When outcomes no longer define you, setbacks lose their power. You recover faster, you learn quicker, you move forward with less emotional baggage. Detachment turns obstacles into feedback instead of failure. This practice deepens trust in yourself. When you know you can handle uncertainty, fear loses authority. Detachment builds confidence that is not dependent on results. That confidence is quiet, steady, and durable. As you reflect on this chapter, remember that detachment is not about withdrawing from life. It is about engaging with it without being controlled by it. You still care, you still commit, you still act with intention. You simply release the illusion that you must control everything for things to be okay. When you let go of what you cannot control, you reclaim control of what truly matters. And in that release, you find freedom, clarity, and strength that no external circumstance can take away. Chapter 8. From Inner Control to a Controlled Life. At some point, control stops being something you practice and becomes something you live. When I first started working on my inner world, it felt intentional and effortful. I had to remind myself to pause, to observe, to choose differently. Over time, something shifted. The practices stopped feeling like techniques and started feeling like a way of being. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became navigable. I no longer felt like I was constantly bracing for impact. A controlled life does not mean a predictable life. This was an important distinction for me. Control does not remove uncertainty. It removes chaos from how you respond to uncertainty. Challenges still appear. Plans still fall apart. People still disappoint. The difference is that these moments no longer knock you off center. Inner control creates stability that external conditions cannot easily disrupt. When the inner world is ordered, decisions become simpler. I noticed that decision-making required less effort, not because there were fewer choices, but because there was less noise. Clear thinking replaced over-analysis. Emotional balance replaced urgency. Discipline replaced hesitation. Decisions stopped feeling like battles and started feeling like alignment with what mattered most. Confidence grows quietly when you trust yourself. This kind of confidence doesn't come from success alone. It comes from knowing you can handle whatever follows. When you trust your ability to respond calmly, think clearly, and act deliberately, fear loses power. I didn't need to control outcomes to feel confident. I needed to trust my inner stability. Life becomes less dramatic when reactions slow down. Drama feeds on impulsive responses. When reactions slow, tension dissolves before it escalates. I noticed fewer conflicts, not because disagreements disappeared, but because I stopped adding fuel. Calm responses changed conversations. Silence diffused pressure. Control showed itself not through force, but through restraint. Inner control changes how others experience you. People respond differently to steadiness. When you're not reactive, conversations become more honest. Boundaries become clearer. Respect increases naturally. I didn't need to assert control over others. Control over myself created an environment where interactions felt grounded and balanced. A controlled life is built through consistency, not intensity. There were no dramatic turning points, no single breakthrough moment. Change happened through repetition. Each pause, each disciplined action, each moment of awareness compounded quietly. Over time, the accumulation became noticeable. I wasn't the same person reacting the same way to the same triggers. You stop chasing peace when peace comes from within. External peace is fragile. It depends on things staying the same. Inner peace is durable. It stays with you through change. Once I experienced this difference, my priorities shifted. I stopped chasing perfect conditions and focused on strengthening my internal foundation. That foundation traveled with me wherever I went. Control does not make you rigid. It makes you adaptable. This surprised me. I expected control to make life narrow. Instead, it expanded possibilities. When emotions were regulated and focus was protected, adaptability increased. I could pivot without panic, adjust without resentment, respond without losing myself. Control made flexibility possible. You begin to measure success differently. Success stopped being only about outcomes. It became about responses. Did I stay calm under pressure? Did I act with intention? Did I keep my word to myself? These internal metrics mattered more than external validation. They created satisfaction that was independent of circumstances. The world stops feeling like something you must fight. When inner control strengthens, resistance fades. Life no longer feels like a constant test you must pass. It becomes a series of experiences you can move through with clarity. This doesn't remove difficulty. It removes unnecessary suffering. Inner mastery creates emotional resilience. Setbacks still hurt, but they don't linger as long. Disappointment passes faster. Recovery becomes quicker. I trusted myself to regain balance. That trust reduced fear of failure. Failure became feedback instead of identity. You don't need to control everything to feel powerful. Power comes from not being shaken by everything, from knowing you can stay steady even when things don't go your way. That power is subtle but profound. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists. A controlled life is not perfect. It is intentional. You still feel emotions. You still face uncertainty. You still make mistakes. The difference is awareness. You notice sooner. You correct faster. You choose better. Intention replaces impulse. Clarity replaces confusion. This is a practice you carry forward, not a destination you reach. Inner control is ongoing. Some days it feels effortless. Other days it requires conscious effort. Both are part of the process. What matters is returning to awareness, returning to discipline, returning to focus. Every moment offers a chance to choose yourself. Each pause is an opportunity. Each decision reinforces identity. Over time, those choices shape a life that feels grounded and aligned. Control stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody. As you reach the end of this chapter, remember that a controlled life is not built by controlling the world. It is built by mastering your inner responses to it. When thoughts are clear, emotions are regulated, focus is protected, discipline is practiced, and attachment is released, life becomes manageable. Not because it bends to your will, but because you no longer lose yourself within it. This is the quiet reward of inner mastery. A life that feels steady, intentional, and fully your own. As you reach the end of this audiobook, it's important to pause and recognize what has really changed. Not the world around you, not your circumstances, but the way you understand control. Throughout this journey, the message has been simple but demanding. Real power does not come from forcing life to cooperate. It comes from mastering what happens inside you before the outside has a chance to take over. You've explored how awareness creates space, how thoughts can either trap or free you, how emotional control turns chaos into clarity, and how discipline and focus build inner order. None of these ideas promise an easy life. They promise a manageable one. A life where you are no longer dragged by impulse, fear, or distraction, but guided by intention. The truth is, the world will never slow down for you. Problems will still appear, pressure will still exist, people will still behave unpredictably. What changes is your relationship to all of it. When your inner world is steady, life stops feeling like a constant test of endurance. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of panic. You stay grounded even when outcomes are uncertain. This kind of control's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in how you handle stress, how you speak when emotions rise, how you act when no one is watching. It's built in ordinary moments, not dramatic breakthroughs. Every pause you take before reacting, every promise you keep to yourself, every time you let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can. These moments shape your inner world, and over time, they shape your life. Remember, this is not about perfection. You will still have days when old habits resurface. You will still feel frustration, doubt, and resistance. That does not erase your progress. Mastery is not about never slipping. It's about noticing sooner and returning faster. Awareness is your anchor. Discipline is your structure. Focus is your guard. Detachment is your release. A controlled life is not one where everything goes your way. It's one where you trust yourself to handle whatever comes your way. That trust is the foundation of confidence. Not loud confidence, but calm confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation, approval, or certainty to exist. As you move forward, don't try to apply everything at once. Choose one principle that resonated deeply and practice it consistently. Let it become part of how you think, feel, and act. Change that lasts is built slowly through repetition and honesty. Most importantly, remember this. You don't need to conquer the world to feel powerful. You only need to stop losing yourself to it. When you master your inner world, the outside loses its grip. Life becomes less about control and more about clarity. Thank you for spending this time reflecting, listening, and choosing growth. And if this audiobook helped you feel calmer, clearer, or more grounded, share it with a friend who may need it right now to improve their life.